The January night in Nashville carried that particular kind of cold that makes your breath visible but doesn't quite freeze your bones. Outside Grimey's new and pre-loved music on East Trinity Lane, the line of fans stretched around the corner, past the old church facade that housed the legendary record store, and down toward the dimly lit street where cars passed slowly, their occupants craning their necks to see what the commotion was about. Inside, the warmth was almost overwhelming. Bodies packed together, the smell of old vinyl mixing with perfume, cologne, and the faint aroma of coffee from the corner cafe down the street. The walls, lined with album covers from decades of music history, seemed to pulse with the energy of the crowd. Someone had strung up fairy lights along the exposed beams of the ceiling, giving the space a soft golden glow that made everything feel dreamlike. Reba McEntire sat behind a table near the back of the store, wearing a black leather jacket over a burgundy blouse, her signature red hair styled in soft waves that caught the light every time she moved. At 68, she still commanded attention the moment she walked into a room. Her latest album, Stronger Than Yesterday, had dropped just 2 weeks ago, and tonight's signing was the third stop on a promotional tour that would take her across the South. "Honey, you've been listening to me since you were, 12? Reba said to the woman standing before her, her Oklahoma accent warm and familiar. She signed the CD case with a flourish, adding a small heart next to her name. 10, actually, the woman replied, tears streaming down her face. Your music got me through my parents' divorce. I can't believe I'm actually meeting you. Reba stood up and came around the table, pulling the woman into a hug. Music's supposed to do that. It's supposed to remind us we're not alone. She held the woman for a moment longer, then released her with a gentle squeeze of the shoulders. You take care of yourself, all right? The woman nodded, clutching the signed CD to her chest like it was made of gold, and moved toward the exit where her friends waited, their phones already out to capture her tear-stained, joyful face. Next, called out Brandon Phillips, Reba's tour manager, a tall man in his 40s with salt and pepper hair and a clipboard that never left his hands. He checked his watch. They'd been at this for 2 hours, and there were still at least 50 people in line. The store was supposed to close at 10, and it was already 8:30. A teenage boy approached next, his hands shaking as he handed over his vinyl copy of Rumor Has It. Reba smiled at him, asked his name, made small talk about school and football while she signed. This was the routine she'd perfected over 35 years in the business. Make eye contact, ask a question, sign while they answer, take a photo, send them on their way, feeling seen. It was exhausting, but she meant it every single time. Outside, about 15 people back from the door, Daniel Harper stood with his daughter Lily, his work boots still carrying traces of the motor oil and grease he hadn't quite managed to scrub off after his shift at Morrison's Auto Repair. He was 36, but looked older, his face lined with the kind of exhaustion that comes from working 2 jobs and raising a child alone. His flannel shirt was clean but worn, patched at one elbow, and his jeans had seen better days. Lily stood beside him, clutching a battered acoustic guitar case that was almost as big as she was. At 11 years old, she was small for her age, with long brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her mother's green eyes that used to be full of mischief but had grown quieter over the past 2 years. She wore her best outfit, a denim jacket over a white t-shirt and jeans that were just slightly too short, revealing the wear on her sneakers. Dad, what if she doesn't like me? Lily whispered, her voice barely audible over the chatter of the crowd. Daniel looked down at his daughter and felt his heart crack a little, the way it did whenever he saw that uncertainty in her face. Lily, she's going to love you. How could she not? I'm nobody. She meets hundreds of people. Why would she remember me? Because you're special, Daniel said firmly, placing a hand on her shoulder. And because you've got something real to share with her. Your music, your story, that matters. Lily didn't look convinced, but she nodded anyway, hugging the guitar case closer to her chest. They shuffled forward as the line moved, inch by inch, getting closer to the door. Daniel's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out and saw a text from Wayne Rodriguez, his supervisor at the garage. "Need you tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Carter called in sick again." Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. Tomorrow was Saturday, supposed to be his day off. He'd planned to take Lily to Percy Warner Park, maybe have a picnic, try to do something normal for once. But he needed the overtime. The bills didn't stop coming, and his second job at the warehouse paid barely above minimum wage. He texted back, "I'll be there." "Everything okay?" Lily asked, noticing her father's expression. "Yeah, sweetheart. Everything's fine." He forced a smile and pocketed the phone. Tonight wasn't about his exhaustion or his bank account. Tonight was about Lily, about giving her something good to hold on to. They'd been planning this for 3 months, ever since Lily had seen the announcement about Reba's signing on the Grimey's Instagram page. She'd come running into the kitchen, her face lit up with an excitement Daniel hadn't seen since before the accident, waving his phone in her hand. "Dad! Dad! Reba McEntire is coming to Nashville. Can we go, please? Please, can we go?" He'd looked at the date, done the mental math of his paychecks, calculated what he could squeeze from the grocery budget, and said yes without hesitation. Because that light in her eyes was worth more than anything. The line moved again. They were close enough now to feel the warmth spilling out from the open door, close enough to hear Reba's laugh carrying over the crowd. Lily's hands were shaking. "You remember what you're going to say?" Daniel asked gently. Lily nodded, her throat tight. She'd practiced in front of the bathroom mirror 100 times. "Tell her thank you for the music. Tell her it helped me when Mom—" She trailed off, unable to finish. "That's good, honey, that's real good. And if you get too nervous, that's okay too. We're just here to meet her, that's all. No pressure." But there was pressure. Lily could feel it building in her chest, could feel the weight of the songs she'd written, the notebook tucked into the inner pocket of her guitar case, the words she'd poured out in the middle of the night when the grief felt like it would swallow her whole. She'd brought them, even though she'd promised herself she wouldn't show them to anyone. They were too personal, too raw. Inside, Reba signed another CD, posed for another photo. Her smile never faltered, but Brandon could see the fatigue around her eyes. They'd been on the road for 10 days straight, and tomorrow they had a radio interview at 6 in the morning, followed by a performance at the Grand Ole Opry in the evening. "Reba, we should probably start wrapping up soon," Brandon said quietly, leaning down so only she could hear. "You've got that early call tomorrow. How many more are out there?" "Maybe 20, 25. Then we're staying until every last one gets through that door," Reba said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "These people waited in the cold. We're not sending them home disappointed." Brandon nodded. He'd worked with her long enough to know when to push and when to accept defeat. This was the latter. The line shuffled forward again. Daniel and Lily were inside now, the warmth hitting them like a wall after the cold outside. Lily's heart was pounding so hard she thought everyone could hear it. Around them, fans clutched their signed albums, their faces glowing with happiness. One woman was openly sobbing. A man in his 50s held up his phone, showing off his selfie with Reba to his wife over FaceTime. "She's right there," Lily whispered, spotting Reba's red hair through the crowd. "Oh my God, Dad, she's right there." "I know, sweetheart." Deep breaths. Lily tried to breathe, but her lungs felt like they'd forgotten how. They moved forward, 10 people ahead. 9, 8. She could hear Reba's voice now, that warm, familiar sound that had filled their small apartment on so many difficult nights. After Lily's mother, Catherine Harper, had died in a car accident on Interstate 40 during a thunderstorm 2 years ago, the house had become unbearably quiet. Catherine had been the music in their lives, always singing while she cooked, humming in the shower, playing guitar on the back porch while fireflies danced in the summer darkness. When she died, the silence she left behind was crushing. It was Lily who'd finally broken it 6 months after the funeral. She'd found her mother's old Reba McEntire CDs in a box in the closet and played them on repeat, filling the apartment with sound again. Fancy. The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia. Consider Me Gone. Songs about survival, about women who endured, who fought back, who refused to be broken. And slowly, Lily had started to heal. Not completely. She didn't think she'd ever be completely whole again. But enough to get out of bed, enough to go back to school, enough to pick up the guitar her mother had left behind and teach herself to play. 7 people ahead. 6. "Dad, I don't think I can do this," Lily said suddenly, panic rising in her throat. "Yes, you can," Daniel said firmly. "You're the bravest person I know, Lily Harper. Braver than me, braver than anyone. You can do this." 5 people ahead. 4. Reba was signing an album for an elderly woman who was telling her about seeing her perform at the Ryman in 1986. Reba listened intently, nodding, laughing at the right moments, her attention completely focused on the person in front of her. 3 people. 2. Lily's hands were numb. The guitar case suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. What was she thinking, bringing it? Reba didn't want to hear her amateur songs. She was a legend, a Hall of Famer, someone who'd sold millions of records. Who was Lily Harper to take up her time? One person, and then it was their turn. Lily stepped forward on legs that didn't quite feel like her own. Reba looked up from signing the previous fan's album, and her eyes met Lily's. For a moment, the noise of the store seemed to fade away. "Well, hello there," Reba said, her smile warm and genuine. "And who do we have here?" Lily opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Her mind, which had rehearsed this moment 100 times, went completely blank. "This is Lily," Daniel said, stepping forward and placing a gentle hand on his daughter's back. "Lily Harper. She's 11, and she's been a fan of yours for as long as I can remember. We drove up from Murfreesboro to see you tonight." "Lily Harper," Reba repeated as if trying out the name. "That's a beautiful name. Murfreesboro, huh? That's a good drive? Thank you for coming all this way." She noticed the guitar case. "You play?" Lily nodded, still unable to form words. "That's wonderful. How long have you been playing?" 2 years, Lily finally managed to whisper. 2 years. Well, you must be getting pretty good by now. Do you take lessons? Lily shook her head. "I taught myself, from YouTube mostly, and from watching old videos of you." Something in Reba's expression shifted, softened. "You taught yourself. That's impressive, honey. Really impressive." She picked up her pen. "What would you like me to sign?" Lily pulled out a CD from her jacket pocket. Reba. Duets. The album that had the collaboration with Kelly Clarkson that Lily loved so much. Her hands shook as she handed it over. Reba took it, but instead of signing immediately, she looked at Lily more closely. "Honey, are you okay? You're shaking like a leaf." And that's when something broke inside Lily. Maybe it was the kindness in Reba's voice, or the genuine concern in her eyes, or maybe it was just that she'd been holding everything in for so long that she couldn't hold it anymore. "I wanted to thank you," Lily blurted out, tears suddenly streaming down her face. "Your music, it saved me. After my mom died, I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to see my friends. I didn't even want to get out of bed. But then I found her CDs, and I started listening to your songs, and they made me feel like maybe I could be strong. Like maybe I could survive this. And then I started writing my own songs, trying to put all the feelings somewhere, and music became the only thing that made sense anymore. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for being there when I needed someone, even if you didn't know it." The words came out in a rush, barely coherent, punctuated by sobs. Around them, the noise of the store continued, people talking, laughing, the sound of plastic cases being opened and closed. But at their table, Everything had gone still. Reba set down the CD without signing it. She set down her pen. And then she stood up and came around the table, just like she'd done for the crying fan earlier, but this was different. This wasn't a quick hug and a pat on the back. "Brandon," Reba said quietly, not taking her eyes off Lily, "stop the line." "What?" Brandon looked up from his clipboard, confused. "Stop the line," Reba repeated, more firmly this time. "Right now." Brandon hesitated for only a moment, then nodded and moved toward the front of the store, holding up his hands. "Folks, we're going to take a short break, just about 10 minutes. We'll get to everyone, I promise." There were some grumbles from the crowd, some confused looks, but people accepted it. This was Reba McEntire, after all. If she needed a break, she needed a break. Reba gently took Lily's arm and guided her toward a small office at the back of the store, away from the crowd. Daniel followed, uncertain, protective. Inside the office, Reba closed the door, muffling the sounds from outside. "Sit down, honey," Reba said, gesturing to a worn couch against the wall. Lily sat, still crying, her guitar case clutched in her lap. Daniel sat beside her, one arm around her shoulders. Reba pulled up a chair and sat directly in front of them, her knees almost touching Lily's. "Now," Reba said softly, "I want you to take a deep breath. Can you do that for me?" Lily tried. The breath came out shaky and uneven, but it was a breath. Good. Another one. This one was steadier. "Okay, now, I want you to tell me about your mama." "What was her name?" "Catherine," Lily whispered. "Catherine Marie Harper." "Catherine, that's lovely. Tell me about her." And so Lily did. Sitting in that small office at the back of Grimey's Records, with the muffled sounds of waiting fans outside and her father's arm around her shoulders, Lily told Reba about her mother, about how Catherine had worked as a nurse at Vanderbilt Hospital, how she'd sung in the church choir, how she'd taught Lily to make chocolate chip cookies and braided her hair every morning before school, about the accident on that rainy October night, how a semi-truck had jackknifed on the wet highway, how Catherine's car had been in the wrong place at the wrong time, how she'd died before the ambulance even arrived. Reba listened to every word, her eyes never leaving Lily's face, occasionally reaching out to squeeze the girl's hand or wipe a tear from her cheek. Daniel watched this woman, this famous singer he'd only ever seen on TV or heard on the radio, treat his daughter with such genuine compassion that he felt his own eyes filling with tears. When Lily finished, exhausted from the emotional outpouring, Reba was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Can I tell you something, Lily?" Lily nodded. "I lost my daddy when I was young. Well, not as young as you. I was grown, had kids of my own, but the pain that doesn't change with age. And music was what got me through it too. Music has this power to hold us when nothing else can, to say the things we can't say, to make us feel less alone in the dark." She paused. "You said you've been writing songs." Lily nodded again, more hesitant this time. "Would you let me see them?" Fear flashed across Lily's face. "They're not good. They're just things I wrote in my notebook. They're not like real songs or anything." "Honey, if they came from your heart, they're real songs. The realest kind." Reba's eyes were steady, encouraging. "You don't have to show me if you don't want to, but I'd be honored to read them if you're willing to share." Lily looked at her father. Daniel gave her the smallest nod, leaving the choice to her. Slowly, with trembling hands, Lily unzipped her guitar case and pulled out a worn spiral notebook from the inner pocket. The cover was decorated with stickers, stars, flowers, a rainbow, and the edges were frayed from being opened and closed so many times. She handed it to Reba, then immediately wanted to snatch it back. But Reba was already opening it, her eyes scanning the first page. The handwriting was that of a child, uneven and sometimes scratched out and rewritten, but the words themselves were raw and honest. The first song was titled empty chair, and it was about the seat at the dinner table where Catherine used to sit, now painfully vacant. Reba read in silence, turning the pages carefully. Her expression was unreadable at first, professional, but as she continued, something changed. Her brow furrowed, her lips pressed together. She reached the second song, Mama's Guitar, about learning to play on the instrument her mother had left behind. Then halfway through Missing You, about the moments when grief catches you off guard, in the grocery store, seeing her mother's favorite cereal, in the car, when a certain song comes on the radio. At school, when the teacher asks about family, and Lily has to decide whether to say my mom or my dad, as if Catherine never existed. When Reba finished reading, she closed the notebook carefully and looked at Lily with an expression that Daniel couldn't quite identify. It wasn't pity. He'd seen enough pity over the past 2 years to recognize it immediately. It was something else. Respect, maybe. Recognition. "Lily Harper," Reba said quietly, "you have a gift. A real, genuine gift. These songs, they're not just good for an 11-year-old, they're good, period. They're honest and raw and beautiful in a way that a lot of professional songwriters spend their whole lives trying to achieve." Lily stared at her, unable to process what she was hearing. "Have you ever played these for anyone?" "Just my dad," Lily admitted. "And he has to say he likes them because he's my dad." "Not true," Daniel interjected. "I've told you 100 times, Lily, you're talented, really talented." Reba nodded in agreement. "Your daddy's right. Now let me ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Would you play one of these songs for me, right now?" Panic flooded Lily's face. "Here? Now? Right here, right now? Just you, me, your dad, and these 4 walls? Nobody else has to hear. But I'd really like to hear your voice, hear how you bring these words to life." "I can't," Lily whispered. "I'm not ready. I'm not good enough." "Honey, if you were good enough to write these songs, you're good enough to sing them." Reba leaned forward, her voice gentle but insistent. "I'm not going to push you if you really don't want to, but I think you're braver than you think you are, and I think your mama would want you to share this gift with the world." The mention of Catherine was what did it. Lily felt something shift inside her, some combination of fear and courage and grief and hope all tangled together. Before she could talk herself out of it, she pulled the guitar from its case. It was old, the wood scuffed and the strings slightly rusted, but Catherine had played it for years before passing it to Lily, and it held more value than any pristine instrument ever could. Lily's fingers shook as she positioned them on the frets. She'd practiced these songs 1,000 times in her bedroom, late at night, when her father thought she was sleeping, singing softly into the darkness. But this was different. This was Reba McEntire, her idol, watching her with those kind eyes, waiting. "This one's called Halfway Through Missing You," Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. She began to play. The first few notes were shaky, uncertain, but as she continued, muscle memory took over. The chord progression was simple but effective, G, D, M, C, repeating in a pattern that gave the song a melancholy, cyclical feel, like the endless loop of grief itself. And then she began to sing. Her voice was small at first, thin and wavering, but it grew stronger with each line. It wasn't a perfect voice. It cracked on the high notes and sometimes went slightly off-key, but it was real. It carried genuine emotion, the kind that can't be faked or manufactured. She sang about seeing her mother's favorite coffee mug still in the kitchen cabinet, about hearing a laugh that sounded like Catherine's in a crowded store and turning around, expecting to see her there. About the crushing disappointment when it's a stranger's face instead. Daniel listened to his daughter sing and felt his heart breaking and mending at the same time. He'd heard this song before, late one night when Lily didn't know he was awake, standing outside her bedroom door with his hand on the doorknob, wanting to go in and hold her, but knowing she needed this space to grieve in her own way. Reba listened with the trained ear of someone who'd spent 4 decades in the music industry, but also with the heart of someone who understood loss. She heard the technical flaws, the pitch issues, the breathing that needed work, but she also heard something that couldn't be taught. She heard truth. She heard a soul laid bare, turned into melody and verse. She heard star quality, raw and unpolished, but there nonetheless. When Lily finished, her hands fell from the guitar strings, and the last note faded into silence. She couldn't look up, couldn't meet Reba's eyes, terrified of what she might see there. "Lily," Reba said, and her voice was thick with emotion. "Look at me, honey." Slowly, Lily raised her eyes. Reba's face was wet with tears. "That was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard, and I've heard a lot of music in my life." "Really?" Lily's voice was small, hopeful. "Really? Cross my heart." Reba wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, not bothering to hide her emotion. "You have something special, Lily Harper, something that can't be taught or bought or manufactured. You have a genuine voice, and the world needs to hear it." "But I'm just a kid. I'm nobody." "You're not nobody," Reba said firmly. "Don't ever say that about yourself. You're a young woman with a story to tell, and the courage to tell it. That's not nothing. That's everything." She looked at Daniel. "Is it all right if I ask you both something?" Daniel nodded, still processing what he'd just witnessed. He'd known his daughter was talented, but seeing it validated by someone like Reba McEntire was surreal. "I want to help Lily with her music," Reba said. "I'm not talking about making her into some kind of child star or anything like that. But I have connections in Nashville, producers, vocal coaches, songwriters who could help her develop her craft. Would you be open to that?" Daniel's mind reeled. We don't have money for that kind of thing. I work 2 jobs just to keep us afloat. I can't afford—" "I'm not asking you to pay for anything," Reba interrupted gently. "I'm offering to help as a gift, because I see something in your daughter that deserves to be nurtured, and because your family's been through enough hardship. Let someone give you a hand up for once." Daniel felt his throat tighten. Pride warred with practicality, with exhaustion, with the desperate desire to give his daughter every opportunity he'd never had. "Why would you do that? You don't even know us." "Because somebody did it for me once," Reba said simply. "When I was starting out, scared out of my mind, trying to make it in this town, there were people who took a chance on me, who saw something worth investing in. And I've never forgotten that kindness. This is how I pay it forward." She turned back to Lily. "What do you say, honey? Would you like to work on your music, really work on it, with people who can help you get better?" Lily looked at her father, her eyes wide and questioning. Daniel saw the hope there, the hunger for something beyond their small apartment and their constant struggles, and he couldn't bring himself to say no. "If Lily wants to, then yes," he said. "Yes, we'd be incredibly grateful." "I want to," Lily said quickly, her voice stronger than it had been all night. "Yes, please, yes." Reba smiled, the kind of smile that lit up her whole face. "All right then, we'll make it happen." She pulled out her phone. "Brandon's probably having a heart attack out there, wondering what's taking so long. Let me get your number, Daniel, and we'll set something up in the next few days. I'll be in Nashville for another week doing promo, and I'd like to introduce Lily to some folks before I leave." They exchanged numbers, Daniel's hands shaking as he typed his contact information into Reba McEntire's phone. This couldn't be real. Any moment he'd wake up in his bed, alarm blaring, another 14-hour workday ahead of him, and this would all have been a dream. But it wasn't a dream. When they finally emerged from the office, the crowd of waiting fans still there, restless but patient, it was real. Reba returned to her table, but not before pulling Lily into one more hug. "You keep writing, you hear me?" she whispered into Lily's ear. "Don't stop. The world needs your voice." Lily nodded against Reba's shoulder, unable to speak. Reba signed their CD, adding a personal message. To Lily Harper, a real songwriter, keep shining, love, Reba, and posed for a photo. In the picture that Daniel would later frame and hang in their living room, Lily's smile was radiant, transformative. The smile of a girl who'd just been told her dreams might actually be possible. As they walked out of Grimey's into the cold January night, Lily clutched the signed CD and her guitar case, and Daniel noticed something he hadn't seen in 2 years. His daughter was practically glowing. The weight that had sat on her shoulders since Catherine's death seemed lighter somehow, not gone but bearable. "Dad," Lily said as they walked toward their car, an old Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door and a muffler that needed replacing. "Did that really just happen?" "Yes, sweetheart," Daniel said, his own voice choked with emotion. "That really just happened." They drove home through the Nashville night, past the lit-up honky-tonks of Broadway, past the historic Ryman Auditorium, where Reba had performed countless times, past Music Row, where dreams were made and broken every day. Lily stared out the window, her reflection ghost-like in the glass, and for the first time in a long time, she let herself imagine a future that wasn't just about survival. She let herself imagine possibility. Neither of them could have known, in that moment, just how much that one night would change everything. How Reba McEntire, true to her word, would not only open doors for Lily Harper, but would fundamentally alter the trajectory of both their lives. How the songs written in a spiral notebook by a grieving 11-year-old would touch more people than they ever dreamed possible. But that was still to come. For now, driving home through the cold Nashville night, it was enough to have hope. After 2 years of darkness, that small spark of light was everything. 3 days later, Daniel's phone rang while he was under a 2019 Ford F-150, replacing a worn-out transmission. He didn't hear it at first over the noise of the garage. The pneumatic tools, the radio playing classic rock, his co-worker Jimmy Patterson shouting about needing a different size socket wrench. It was only when Wayne Rodriguez called out, "Harper, your phone won't stop ringing," that Daniel rolled out from under the truck, wiped his greasy hands on a shop rag, and checked the screen. Unknown number. Nashville area code. His heart jumped into his throat. He'd been waiting for this call, hoping for it, but also half convinced it would never come. That night at Grimey's had taken on a dream-like quality in his memory, something too good to be real. "Hello?" he answered, stepping outside into the cold morning air for privacy. "Daniel, this is Reba McEntire." Even though he'd been expecting it, hearing that voice, that famous, unmistakable voice, say his name, made his knees weak. "Hi, yes, this is Daniel. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time." No, not at all. He was absolutely at a bad time. He had 3 more cars to get through before his shift ended, and then had to be at the warehouse by 4. But he would have said no, even if the garage was on fire. "Good. Listen, I've made some calls, and I'd like Lily to come by the studio tomorrow afternoon if that works for you. There's someone I want her to meet." Tomorrow was Thursday. Daniel was supposed to work at the garage until 3, then head straight to the warehouse until 11. He mentally calculated what it would cost him to call in sick to the warehouse. 4 hours of wages he couldn't really afford to lose. But this was for Lily. "We can make that work," he said. "What time?" "How's 2 o'clock? I'll text you the address." "It's a private studio in Music Row, place called Soundscape Recording. Just come in and ask for me." "We'll be there, thank you. Really, I can't tell you what this means to—" "Don't thank me yet," Reba said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. "Let's see how tomorrow goes first. And Daniel, make sure Lily brings her guitar and that notebook." After they hung up, Daniel stood in the cold for a moment, staring at his phone, then pumped his fist in the air like a teenager. Wayne stuck his head out the garage door. Everything okay out here? Yeah, Daniel said, grinning like an idiot. Everything's perfect. That night, after his warehouse shift, Daniel got home at 11:30 to find Lily still awake, sitting at the kitchen table doing homework. Or pretending to do homework. Her math textbook was open, but she'd filled the margins with song lyrics instead of equations. "You're supposed to be asleep," Daniel said, though there was no heat in his words. "I was waiting for you." Lily looked up, and Daniel saw the anxiety in her face. Did she call? She did. Daniel couldn't keep the smile off his face. "We're going to the studio tomorrow at 2. You're going to meet someone." Lily's eyes went wide. "Who?" She didn't say. "But I think we should trust her, don't you?" Lily nodded, but Daniel could see the fear creeping in alongside the excitement. "Dad, what if I mess this up? What if I freeze like I did at the record store and can't sing or play or anything?" Daniel sat down across from her, taking her small hands in his calloused ones. "Then you freeze, and we figure it out. Lily, listen to me. Whatever happens tomorrow, I'm proud of you. Just for being brave enough to show Reba your songs, for getting back up after losing your mom when I know how hard that's been. You've already done the hardest part. Everything else is just details. But this is a real chance, Dad. What if I blow it? You won't. But even if you did, which you won't, there will be other chances. You're 11 years old. You have your whole life ahead of you." He squeezed her hands gently. "No pressure, okay? We're just going to go see what happens, and whatever that is, we'll handle it together. Deal?" "Deal," Lily whispered. "Now get to bed. You need sleep if you're going to be sharp tomorrow." Lily hugged him goodnight, holding on a little longer than usual, and Daniel breathed in the smell of her strawberry shampoo and thought about Catherine. She should be here for this. She should be the one taking Lily to the studio, both of them giggling with excitement, probably running late because Catherine could never be on time for anything. The unfairness of it hit him like it sometimes still did. A wave of grief so strong it almost knocked him over. But Catherine wasn't here, and he was. So he'd be enough. He'd have to be. The next day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Daniel worked on autopilot, his mind on the upcoming studio visit, until Wayne finally pulled him aside around noon. "You've been distracted all morning. Anything I should know about?" Daniel hesitated. He and Wayne weren't exactly friends. Wayne was his boss, and Daniel needed this job too much to risk blurring those lines. But Wayne had always been fair to him, understanding when Daniel needed time off for Lily's school events or when she'd been sick. "My daughter's got an opportunity," Daniel said carefully, "with music. It's kind of a big deal." Wayne raised his eyebrows. "Music, huh? She sing?" "Yeah, writes songs too. We met Reba McEntire a few days ago, and she wants to help Lily. We've got a studio visit this afternoon." Wayne let out a low whistle. "Reba McEntire? That's some heavy-hitting company. Good for your kid. You need to take off early. If that's okay, I can make up the hours this weekend." "Go now," Wayne said. "You're useless to me anyway with your head in the clouds. And Harper, your daughter's lucky to have a dad who cares this much." Daniel felt his throat tighten. "Thanks, Wayne." He picked Lily up from Belshire Middle School at 1:30, signing her out early with a note claiming a doctor's appointment. Lily came running out of the building, her backpack bouncing, still wearing her school clothes, jeans and a sweater with a small stain on the sleeve she'd tried unsuccessfully to hide with a scarf. "Ready?" Daniel asked as she climbed into the car. "No," Lily said honestly, "but let's go anyway." They drove into Nashville, taking I-24 toward downtown, then navigating the maze of streets around Music Row. Daniel had typed the address into his phone's GPS, but he still got turned around twice before finally finding Soundscape Recording, a nondescript building on Music Square East that he would have driven right past if not for the small bronze plaque by the door. Inside, the reception area was surprisingly modest. A small waiting room with a leather couch, some gold records on the walls, and a young woman at the desk who looked up when they entered. "Can I help you?" "We're here to see Reba McEntire," Daniel said, feeling ridiculous saying those words. "She's expecting us, Daniel and Lily Harper." The receptionist checked her computer, then smiled. "Yes, you're on the list. Studio B down the hall to your right. She's already here." They walked down a hallway lined with photographs of famous artists who'd recorded here, everyone from Taylor Swift to Keith Urban to some names Daniel didn't recognize. Lily gripped her guitar case so tightly her knuckles were white. Studio B's door was partially open. Through it, they could hear voices, one of which was unmistakably Reba's. Daniel knocked gently. "Come on in," Reba called. They entered a space that was larger than Daniel had expected, with soundproof walls covered in acoustic foam, a control booth visible through a large window, and various instruments scattered around, several guitars on stands, a keyboard, a full drum kit in the corner. The lights were warm and soft, creating an intimate atmosphere despite the professional equipment everywhere. Reba stood near the control booth, talking to a man Daniel didn't recognize. He was maybe 45, with dark hair starting to grey at the temples, wearing jeans and a button-down shirt rolled up at the sleeves. He had the comfortable, confident air of someone completely at home in this environment. "Daniel, Lily, perfect timing," Reba said, coming over to greet them with hugs. She dressed casually today, jeans, boots, and a simple black blouse, but she still looked every inch the star. "I want you to meet Christopher Bennett. He's one of the best producers in Nashville, and more importantly, he's one of the best people I know." Christopher extended his hand first to Daniel, then crouched down slightly to be at eye level with Lily. "Nice to meet you, Lily. Reba's told me a lot about you." "She has." Lily's voice came out as a squeak. "She has. Said you've got some songs that'll knock my socks off. Think you can deliver on that promise?" Lily looked at Reba, who gave her an encouraging nod. "I can try. That's all I ask." Christopher straightened up and gestured around the studio. "You ever been in a recording studio before?" Lily shook her head. "Well, let me give you the quick tour." He pointed to the control booth. "That's where all the magic happens, where we mix and master the recordings. Out here is the live room where you actually perform. See those microphones?" He indicated several professional-grade mics set up around the space. "Each one picks up sound a little differently, and we choose which to use based on what we're recording. Vocals, acoustic guitar, drums, they all need different treatment." As Christopher talked, Lily relaxed slightly, her natural curiosity overcoming some of her nervousness. She asked questions about the equipment, about how the soundproofing worked, about the gold record on the wall. Christopher had produced it for a country duo Daniel had heard on the radio. Reba watched this interaction with a small smile, then caught Daniel's eye and gestured for him to follow her to the side of the room. "How's she doing?" Reba asked quietly. "Terrified, but trying not to show it," Daniel admitted. "She barely slept last night. I'm not sure if this is going to be too much pressure for her." "Christopher's good with kids," Reba assured him. "He's got 3 of his own. He knows how to make this fun, rather than stressful. Just trust the process, okay?" Daniel nodded, though his protective instincts were on high alert. He'd seen Lily hurt too many times over the past 2 years, hurt by her own grief, hurt by kids at school who didn't understand why she'd gotten so quiet, hurt by the simple cruelty of a world that kept turning even after her mother died. He didn't want this dream to turn into another disappointment. After the tour, Christopher suggested they start with something simple, just Lily playing one of her songs, no pressure to record, just to get comfortable with the space. "Which song do you want to start with?" he asked. Lily thought for a moment, then said, "Maybe Empty Chair. It's one of the first ones I wrote." "Perfect. Set up wherever feels comfortable." Lily chose a spot near the window of the control booth, where she could see everyone, but felt slightly separated, less exposed. She pulled out her mother's guitar, took a moment to tune it, her hands shaking slightly as she turned the pegs, and then positioned her fingers on the frets. "Whenever you're ready," Christopher said. "No rush." Lily closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began to play. The song was quieter than Halfway Through Missing You, more intimate. The melody was simple, almost childlike, which somehow made the lyrics hit harder. She sang about the empty chair at the dinner table, about how they'd tried rearranging the furniture to make it less obvious, but the absence was still there. About setting the table for two instead of three, and how that small act felt like betrayal, like admitting Catherine was really gone. "We moved your chair into the corner, but I still see you sitting there. Dad says time will make it easier, but there's still an empty chair." When she finished, the silence in the studio was profound. Christopher sat very still, his expression unreadable. Reba had her hand over her mouth. Daniel was trying not to cry in front of his daughter, trying to be strong. But God, it was hard. Finally, Christopher spoke. "Lily, how old are you again?" 11, she whispered. 11, he repeated, shaking his head slightly. "I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've worked with some of the best songwriters in Nashville. Award winners, Hall of Famers, and that song you just played, it's better than 90% of what comes across my desk." He paused, letting that sink in. "You have a gift, kiddo. A real, genuine gift." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Really? Really? The technical stuff. We can work on your pitch, your breathing, your guitar playing. But what you have, the ability to turn emotion into something other people can feel, that can't be taught. You either have it or you don't, and you have it in spades." Reba came over and sat down next to Lily. "That's why I brought you here. Christopher's going to help you develop your craft, work with you on the technical side of things. But the heart of what you do, that soul you put into your songs, that's all you, honey, that's all you." Over the next hour, Christopher worked with Lily in a way that felt more like play than work. He taught her some breathing exercises to help support her voice, showed her different ways to hold the guitar to reduce strain on her hands, and introduced her to the concept of mic technique, how to position herself in relation to the microphone to get the best sound. Most beginners either get too close and overload the mic or stay too far back and sound weak, he explained. You want to find that sweet spot, usually about 6 to 8 inches away. Here, try it. He had her sing a verse of Empty Chair into one of the professional microphones, adjusting her position until the sound coming through the monitors was clear and full. Lily's eyes widened when she heard her own voice played back through the studio speakers, so much richer and more powerful than it sounded in her bedroom. "That's me?" she asked, incredulous. "That's you," Christopher confirmed. "That's what we're working with." Pretty impressive, right? They took a break around 3:30, and Reba had arranged for sandwiches to be delivered, turkey and Swiss for Daniel, peanut butter and jelly for Lily when Reba learned she was a picky eater, and chicken salad for herself and Christopher. They sat in the control booth, eating and talking, the atmosphere relaxed and comfortable. "So what happens now?" Daniel asked, unable to help himself. "I mean, assuming Lily wants to keep doing this." "I want to," Lily said quickly through a mouthful of sandwich. Christopher and Reba exchanged a look. "Well," Christopher said, "if it's all right with you, I'd like to work with Lily once a week for a while. Nothing too intense, just an hour or two, working on her vocal technique, her songwriting, her instrumental skills. Think of it like music lessons, but more comprehensive." "I can't afford," Daniel started. "We talked about this," Reba interrupted gently. "No cost to you. Christopher's doing this as a favor to me, and I'm covering any expenses." "But why?" Daniel asked, the question bursting out of him. "I don't understand. You barely know us. Why are you doing all this?" Reba set down her sandwich and looked at Daniel directly. You want the honest answer? Please. Because I see myself in Lily. Not exactly the same circumstances, but that hunger, that need to turn feelings into music, to make sense of the world through song. I had that when I was young, and I was lucky enough to have people who nurtured it. My mama, my teachers, the folks in the Oklahoma music scene who gave me chances I didn't necessarily deserve yet. She paused. And because I'm at a point in my career where I have the resources and the connections to pay that forward. If I can't use what I've earned to help the next generation, what's the point of having it? Plus, Christopher added with a grin, Reba's a terrible person to say no to. When she gets an idea in her head about helping someone, you might as well just go along with it. That's absolutely true, Reba agreed, laughing. Daniel felt overwhelmed. The kindness of these strangers who weren't really strangers anymore, almost too much to bear. Thank you, he managed. Both of you. This means more than you know. After lunch, they spent another hour in the studio. Christopher had Lily play through her other songs. She had 7 complete ones in her notebook, plus fragments and ideas for several more, and he gave her feedback on each one. Not harsh criticism, but constructive suggestions delivered in a way that made Lily want to try again rather than give up. This verse here, he said, pointing to a section of Mama's guitar, it's good, but I think you're trying to cram too many syllables into the melody. What if we simplified it a bit? Instead of every time I play a chord, I hear her voice inside my head. What if it was something like every chord I play, I hear her voice, same meaning, cleaner delivery? Lily tried it both ways and immediately heard the difference. Oh yeah, that's better. See? You got the instincts. Now it's just about refining them. By 5 o'clock, Lily was exhausted but glowing. Christopher walked them back to the reception area, Lily's guitar case in hand. So, same time next week? He asked. Lily looked at her father, who nodded. Same time next week. Perfect. Lily, I want you to do some homework before then. Keep writing. Don't worry about whether it's good or bad, just write. Get your feelings out. And practice that breathing exercise I showed you, 5 minutes every morning. I will, Lily promised. Reba had left earlier for a radio interview, but she'd hugged them both goodbye and made them promise to call her with updates. As Daniel and Lily walked back to their car through the late afternoon Nashville chill, Lily was practically bouncing. Dad, did you hear what he said? He said I have a gift, an actual gift. I heard, sweetheart. I've been telling you that for months. Yeah, but you have to say that because you're my dad. Christopher Bennett doesn't have to say anything. He's a professional, and he said I was good. Daniel unlocked the car, and they climbed in. Before starting the engine, he turned to his daughter. You know what I'm proudest of? What? Not that you're talented, though you are, but that you're brave enough to share it. After everything you've been through, you could have given up, could have let the sadness win. But you didn't. You turned it into something beautiful. Your mom would be so proud of you, Lily. I hope you know that. Lily's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. I hope so, too. They drove home as the sun set over Nashville, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Lily fell asleep in the passenger seat, her head resting against the window, and Daniel glanced over at her periodically, this brave, broken, beautiful child who somehow kept surprising him. When they got home to their apartment, a modest 2-bedroom in Murfreesboro, 30 miles south of Nashville, Lily headed straight to her room to write down everything she'd learned. Daniel could hear her in there, talking to herself, playing bits of songs, scribbling in her notebook. He made dinner, spaghetti with jarred sauce, nothing fancy, and called her out to eat. Over pasta, Lily talked non-stop about the studio, about Christopher's suggestions, about how different her voice sounded through professional equipment. Do you think I could actually do this? She asked suddenly, her enthusiasm fading into uncertainty. Like as a job, when I grow up. I think you can do anything you set your mind to, Daniel said carefully. But it's a tough business, sweetheart. A lot of talented people never make it. So I want you to enjoy this process, learn everything you can, but also keep your expectations realistic, okay? Just because you're good doesn't mean success is guaranteed. I know, Lily said, but even if I never get famous or anything, I want to keep writing, keep singing, even if it's just for me. Then that's exactly what you should do. That night, after Lily went to bed, Daniel sat at the kitchen table with their bills spread out before him. The electric bill was overdue. The car needed new tires. Lily's school was having a field trip next month that cost $40 she didn't need, but he wanted to give her anyway. He looked at the numbers, did the math, and sighed. They'd make it work. They always did. Because giving Lily this opportunity, seeing her light up the way she had today, was worth eating ramen for a week. Worth the overtime, the exhaustion, the constant juggling. Catherine would have known what to say right now. She always had the right words for moments like this, could make everything seem manageable with just her presence. Daniel missed her with an ache that hadn't lessened in 2 years, just changed shape, settled into his bones like a permanent bruise. But Lily was healing. Slowly, painfully, incompletely, but healing nonetheless. And if music was what helped her do that, then Daniel would move mountains to make sure she had access to it. He paid what bills he could, set aside the rest for next week's paycheck, and went to bed. Through the thin walls of the apartment, he could hear Lily's guitar playing softly. She was supposed to be asleep, but he didn't have the heart to tell her to stop. The melody was unfamiliar, something new she was working on. And though he couldn't make out the words, he could hear the emotion in her voice. Not just sadness anymore, but something else, something that sounded almost like hope. Over the next 3 weeks, Lily's sessions with Christopher Bennett became the highlight of her week. Every Thursday at 2 o'clock, Daniel would pick her up from school early, something the principal had approved after Daniel explained the situation, and they'd drive to Nashville, to Soundscape Recording, where Christopher would be waiting with new exercises, new techniques, new songs to analyze. Christopher proved to be a patient and insightful teacher. He never talked down to Lily, never treated her like she was just a kid. He engaged with her seriously, respecting her artistic choices while gently pushing her to expand her abilities. "Let's try that chorus again," he'd say, "but this time really open up on that last note. Don't be afraid to let it soar. Or the bridge feels a little rushed. What if we slowed down the tempo here, gave the lyrics more room to breathe?" Lily soaked it all in like a sponge. Her confidence grew with each session. Her voice got stronger, more controlled. Her guitar playing became cleaner, more precise. But more than the technical improvements, she was learning to trust herself, to believe that her voice mattered, that her stories deserved to be heard. Reba stopped by the studio when her schedule allowed, sometimes just to listen, sometimes to work with Lily herself. She taught Lily some of the performance tricks she'd learned over her decades in the business. How to connect with an audience, how to tell a story through a song, how to handle the nerves that came with putting yourself out there. "The key," Reba said during one session, "is to remember that you're not performing at people, you're sharing with them. You're inviting them into your world, letting them feel what you feel. When you think of it that way, it's not so scary." "But what if they don't like what I'm sharing?" Lily asked. "Then they don't like it," Reba said with a shrug. "Not everyone's going to connect with your music, and that's okay. You're not making music for everyone. You're making it for the people who need it, the people who will hear themselves in your songs. Those are your people. Focus on them." By mid-February, Christopher suggested something that both excited and terrified Lily, a small, informal performance. "Nothing big," he assured her when he saw the panic in her eyes. "Just a songwriter's round at the Bluebird Cafe. Have you heard of it?" Lily shook her head, but Daniel had. The Bluebird was legendary in Nashville, a tiny venue where some of the biggest names in country music had gotten their start. It was where Garth Brooks had been discovered, where Taylor Swift had performed as a teenager. It's an intimate setting, Christopher continued, maybe 90 people max. They do these songwriter nights where 3 or 4 artists perform in the round, sitting in a circle, taking turns playing songs. I have a friend who runs the schedule, and I can get you a spot. You'd play 3, maybe 4 songs. What do you think? Lily looked at her father, her eyes wide. I don't know if I can do that. You absolutely can, Christopher said firmly. You're ready, Lily. You've been working hard, your songs are strong, and you need to start getting comfortable performing in front of people. This is a perfect first step. When? Daniel asked. 3 weeks from Saturday, February 28th. Daniel pulled out his phone and checked his work schedule. He was supposed to close at the warehouse that night, wouldn't get off until 11. But this was important. We'll be there. Over the next 3 weeks, Lily practiced obsessively. She ran through her set list, Empty Chair, halfway through Missing You, Mama's Guitar, and a new song she'd just finished called Finding My Voice, until Daniel could recite the lyrics in his sleep. She practiced her stage banter, the brief introductions Christopher said she should give before each song. She practiced breathing exercises to calm her nerves. At school, she told no one except her best friend, Chloe Morrison, who immediately insisted on coming to support her. Daniel called his sister, Jennifer Harper Coleman, who lived in Memphis and who he rarely saw, but who'd always had a soft spot for Lily. The Bluebird Cafe? Jennifer said over the phone, her voice rising with excitement. Daniel, do you know what this means? That's huge. I'm absolutely coming. Wild horses couldn't keep me away. The night of the performance, Daniel left work early, losing 4 hours of pay, but not caring. He picked up Lily from home. She'd been too nervous to go to school that day, and Daniel had let her stay home, figuring her mental health was more important than perfect attendance. She'd agonized over what to wear, finally settling on a simple outfit, dark jeans, a blue flannel shirt that had belonged to Catherine, and the boots Reba had surprised her with 2 weeks ago. Beautiful brown leather boots that actually fit properly, unlike Lily's old sneakers. You look perfect, Daniel said when she emerged from her room for the 5th time, having changed yet again. I look like I'm trying too hard. You look like a musician. Come on, we need to get going. They drove to Nashville in near silence, Lily too nervous to talk, Daniel not wanting to add to her anxiety with false cheerfulness. It had started to rain, a cold February drizzle that made the roads slick and the city lights blur into streaks of color. The Bluebird Cafe was located in a shopping center, unassuming from the outside, just a small storefront that you could easily miss if you weren't looking for it. But when they arrived at 5:30 for Lily's 6 o'clock sound check, there was already a line forming outside of people hoping to get seats. Inside, the venue was exactly as Christopher had described, intimate, almost claustrophobic, with tables packed close together and a small performance area in the center. The walls were covered with photographs and memorabilia from the countless artists who'd graced this stage. Christopher was already there, along with the other 2 performers for the evening. Trevor Nash, a man in his 30s with a weathered face and calloused fingers, who wrote songs about small-town life and blue-collar struggles. And Victoria Chen, a woman in her mid-20s with jet-black hair and a voice like honey, who specialized in heartbreak ballads. Both of them greeted Lily warmly, not a trace of condescension in their demeanor, despite the fact that she was a child and they were seasoned performers. "First time at the Bluebird?" Trevor asked, and when Lily nodded, he grinned. "Mine too, believe it or not. I've been trying to get a slot here for 3 years. We're both making our debut tonight." That made Lily feel slightly better. At least she wasn't the only one who was terrified. The sound check was brief. Each performer played a bit of a song so the sound engineer could set levels. When it was Lily's turn, her hands shook so badly she could barely form the chords. But Christopher was there, steady and encouraging. "Just breathe, kiddo. You've got this." She played through the first verse and chorus of Empty Chair, her voice thin and wavering. But the sound engineer, a woman named Paula Stevens with kind eyes and grey hair, gave her a thumbs up. "Sounds great, honey. You're going to do just fine." Reba arrived at 6:15, causing a small commotion among the early arrivals who recognized her. She made her way to the table Christopher had reserved for them, front and center, impossible to miss, and pulled Lily into a hug. "How are you holding up?" "I think I'm going to throw up," Lily admitted. "That's a good sign. Means you care. The day you stop getting nervous before a performance is the day you should worry." Reba held Lily at arm's length, looking her over. "You look beautiful." "Your mama's shirt." Lily nodded, unable to speak. "She'd be so proud of you right now. You know that, right?" Tears welled up in Lily's eyes, threatening to spill over and ruin the minimal makeup she'd applied. Just a little mascara and lip gloss that Jennifer had helped her with over FaceTime. "Don't make me cry," Lily pleaded. "Not yet. I can cry after, but not before." Reba laughed and wiped at her own eyes. "Deal? Okay, you go get ready. We'll be right here cheering you on." By 7 o'clock, when the show was set to start, the venue was packed. Every table was full, people stood along the walls, and there was a waiting list of folks outside, hoping someone would leave early so they could slip in. Daniel sat at the front table with Reba, Jennifer, Chloe and her parents, and Christopher, his heart pounding with a mixture of pride and terror. The house lights dimmed. The MC, a local radio personality named Jackson Hughes, took the microphone. "Welcome to the Bluebird Cafe. We've got a fantastic lineup for you tonight. 3 incredible songwriters who are going to share their stories through music. Let's give a warm welcome to Trevor Nash, Victoria Chen, and making her very first public performance, 11-year-old Lily Harper." The audience applauded as the 3 performers took their seats in the center of the room, arranged in a triangle so they could see each other. Lily's guitar was already shaking in her hands. Trevor went first, playing a song about his grandfather's farm and the changing landscape of rural America. His voice was rough but genuine, and the audience was immediately engaged. Victoria went second, a haunting ballad about a relationship that ended too soon. Her vocal control was impressive, and when she hit the high notes, several people in the audience gasped. Then it was Lily's turn. She looked out at the crowd, 90 strangers' faces looking back at her, expectant, curious, and her mind went completely blank. She couldn't remember the words, couldn't remember the chords, couldn't remember her own name. Panic seized her throat. She looked at her father, saw the concern in his eyes, saw Reba leaning forward as if ready to leap up and rescue her. And then, somehow, she heard Catherine's voice in her head. Not a memory exactly, but an echo of something her mother used to say, "When you're scared, close your eyes and find the music. It's always there, waiting for you." Lily closed her eyes, took a deep breath, found the first chord on her guitar, G major, her fingers knowing the shape even when her mind was frozen. And then she began to play. "This song is called Empty Chair," she said, her voice small but steady. "I wrote it about my mom who died 2 years ago. This is her guitar I'm playing." And then she sang. The first few notes were shaky, but as she continued, something shifted. The fear didn't disappear. It was still there, a knot in her stomach, but it became manageable, transformed into energy that fueled her performance rather than paralyzing her. She sang about the empty chair at the dinner table, about the absence that haunted their home, about trying to move forward while carrying the weight of loss. Her voice was young and imperfect, cracking on some of the higher notes, but it was real. It was honest. It was a child's grief laid bare for strangers to witness. When she finished, the silence in the room was absolute. And then someone started clapping. Reba, Daniel thought, though he couldn't see through his tears. And then everyone was applauding, and several people were crying openly, and Lily opened her eyes to see an entire room of strangers moved by her story. The performance continued, rotating through the performers. Trevor played a song about his daughter learning to ride a bike. Victoria sang about her grandmother's immigration from Taiwan, and when it came back to Lily, she played Halfway Through Missing You, and then Mama's Guitar. For her final song, she introduced Finding My Voice, the newest addition to her repertoire. "I wrote this one last week," she said, her confidence growing with each song. It's about discovering that even when bad things happen, even when you lose someone you love, you can still find a way to speak your truth. Music gave me that voice when I didn't think I had one anymore. The song was different from her others, less about grief, more about empowerment. It talked about using pain as fuel, about turning sorrow into strength, about refusing to let loss define you, even as you carried it with you. I found my voice in the silence, found my strength in the pain. When I thought I had nothing left to say, the music called my name. When the performance ended and the three artists stood to take their bows, the audience rose to their feet in a standing ovation. Lily stood there, overwhelmed, hardly able to process what had just happened. Afterward, as people filed out of the venue, several came up to Lily. An elderly woman hugged her and told her about losing her own daughter to cancer. A man in his 40s said her song about the empty chair reminded him of his father's passing. A teenage girl asked if Lily had any recorded music she could buy. "Not yet," Lily said, still dazed, "but maybe someday." Reba had been approached by several fans herself, but she kept redirecting people to Lily. "She's the real star tonight. Go tell her how great she was." Trevor and Victoria both congratulated Lily, impressed by her poise and her songwriting. 11 years old, Victoria said, shaking her head in amazement. "When I was 11, I was writing songs about boys in my class. You're writing literature. Keep it up, kid. You're going places." Outside, as they walked to the car through the cold February night, Jennifer pulled Daniel aside while Lily talked excitedly with Chloe. "That was incredible," Jennifer said. "Daniel, you realize what you witnessed in there, right? That wasn't just a kid playing music, that was something special." "I know," Daniel said quietly. "I'm terrified and proud in equal measure. What if I can't give her what she needs to pursue this? What if I hold her back?" "You won't. You're doing everything right. She's happy, she's healing, and she's got people like Reba and Christopher supporting her. Just keep being her dad. That's all she needs from you." Daniel nodded, but the fear remained. The fear that he wasn't enough, that Catherine would have known better how to handle this, that somehow he'd make the wrong choice and ruin everything for Lily. But when Lily ran back to him, her face glowing with joy, and threw her arms around his waist, he pushed those fears aside. Tonight wasn't about his insecurities. Tonight was about celebrating his daughter's courage. "Did you see, Dad? Did you see all those people listening? They really heard me." "I saw, sweetheart. You were amazing. I'm so proud of you." They drove home through the rainy Nashville night, Lily chattering the whole way about the performance, about Trevor's kind words, about the woman who'd cried during Empty Chair. In the back seat, Chloe had already posted photos to Instagram with the caption, "My best friend is a star." When they got home, exhausted and happy, Lily went straight to her room to write down everything she was feeling while it was still fresh. Daniel made hot chocolate, a tradition Catherine had started on special nights, and brought it to her. "Thanks, Dad." Lily took the mug, warming her hands on it. "Hey, do you think Mom saw? Tonight, I mean. Do you think she knows?" Daniel sat on the edge of her bed, choosing his words carefully. "I don't know what happens after we die, Lily. But I'd like to think that if there's any way for her to watch over you, she's doing it. And I know, without a doubt, that she'd be bursting with pride right now." "I felt her there," Lily said softly. "Right before I started singing, when I was so scared I couldn't breathe, I felt like she was telling me it was okay, that I could do it. Is that crazy?" "Not even a little bit." Daniel kissed the top of her head. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we can process all of this. Tonight just let yourself feel good about what you accomplished." But sleep was the last thing on Lily's mind. She stayed up until past midnight, writing a new song that poured out of her in a rush. She called it Stage Light, and it was about finding courage in unexpected places, about discovering that you were stronger than you knew. In his own room, Daniel lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the future. About the doors that seemed to be opening for Lily, about the path stretching out before her, about his role in helping her navigate it. His phone buzzed with a text from Reba. "She was magnificent tonight. You're raising an incredible young woman, Daniel. Catherine would be so proud of you both." He typed back, "Thank you for everything. We wouldn't be here without you." "Yes, you would," came Reba's reply. "Talent like Lily's finds a way. I just helped open the door a little earlier. The rest is all her." Daniel set down his phone and closed his eyes, letting himself believe it, letting himself hope that maybe, just maybe, something good was coming out of all the pain and loss they'd endured. March came to Nashville with unpredictable weather. Warm sunshine one day, frost the next. Lily continued her weekly sessions with Christopher, and word about her Bluebird performance had spread through Nashville's tight-knit songwriter community. The video Chloe had posted to Instagram had been shared hundreds of times. A local music blog had written about the 11-year-old prodigy who brought the Bluebird to tears. Suddenly, Lily Harper wasn't just a grieving kid learning to play guitar. She was a name people recognized. Christopher fielded several calls from people wanting to work with her. Other producers, songwriters looking to collaborate, even a small independent label interested in possibly signing her. He brought each opportunity to Daniel and Lily, explaining the pros and cons, careful not to push, but to educate. "The music industry is full of people who will promise you the world," he warned during one session in early March. "Some of them mean it, some of them don't. You need to be smart about who you trust and what you sign. That's why I wanted to talk to you about something." Daniel and Lily exchanged glances. They were sitting in the studio control booth, having just finished working on a new song Lily had written called March Winds. "There's a showcase coming up in April," Christopher continued. "It's called the Nashville Rising Talent Showcase, and it's a big deal. Record label executives attend, producers, managers, basically everyone who matters in the country music world. Artists perform 3 songs, and it's a chance to get noticed by people who can really advance your career." "Okay," Lily said slowly. "And you think I should do it?" "I think you should consider it. The thing is, there's an age requirement. You have to be at least 16. Lily's face fell. "Oh, then I can't do it." "Well, not exactly. I spoke to the organizer, Rachel Ford, who's a good friend of mine. I told her about you, showed her the video from the Bluebird. She wants to make an exception, let you perform even though you're only 11. But Daniel, this is where I need you to really think carefully." Daniel leaned forward. "What are the risks?" "Exposure, mainly. If Lily performs at this showcase, she's going to be on people's radar in a major way. That could lead to amazing opportunities, recording contracts, professional management, the works. But it also means pressure, expectations, loss of privacy. The music industry doesn't always treat child artists well. I want to make sure you both understand what you might be getting into." "What do you think we should do?" Lily asked Christopher. "Honestly, I think you're talented enough to handle it. But talent isn't the only factor. You need to be emotionally ready for what comes with that level of attention. And Daniel, you need to be ready to protect her from the parts of this industry that aren't healthy." Daniel felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. This could change Lily's life, but was change what she needed right now? She was still healing from losing Catherine. Was it wise to throw her into something this intense? "Can we think about it?" he asked. "Of course. The showcase is April 15th. I'd need to confirm your slot by the end of this month, so you've got about 3 weeks to decide." That night, Daniel and Lily sat at their kitchen table, the table with the empty chair that Lily had written about, and talked it through. "What do you want to do, sweetheart?" Daniel asked. "I don't know," Lily admitted. "Part of me really wants to do it. But part of me is scared. What if I mess up in front of all those important people? What if I'm not good enough?" "You're good enough. That's not even a question. But Christopher's right about the pressure. If you do this showcase and people like what they see, your life might change in big ways. Are you ready for that?" Lily twisted her hands together, thinking. "Do you remember what Mum used to say about taking chances?" Daniel smiled sadly. "She'd say, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take." "Wayne Gretzky," Lily said, reciting the rest of Catherine's favorite quote. "Mom loved that saying. She said it before she applied to nursing school, before she asked you out on your first date, before everything that scared her." "She did," Daniel confirmed. "Then I think I want to take the shot. I'm scared, but I want to try, for Mom and for me." Daniel looked at his daughter, this brave, complicated, talented person who was growing up faster than he was ready for, and felt pride mixed with terror. "Okay," he said, "then we'll do it. But we do it smart. We talk to Reba, we get Christopher's advice on everything, and if at any point it becomes too much, we walk away. Deal?" "Deal." They called Christopher the next day and confirmed Lily's spot in the showcase. Then they called Reba, who was on tour in Texas, but immediately offered her support. "This is huge, Lily," Reba's voice crackled over speakerphone. "The Nashville Rising Showcase launched Casey Musgraves, launched Sam Hunt. If you do well there, doors are going to open." "What if I don't do well?" Lily asked, voicing the fear that had kept her up the previous night. "Then you don't, and life goes on." "But honey, I've heard you sing. I've heard your songs. You're going to blow them away. Just be yourself, tell your truth, and let the music speak." Over the next 5 weeks, Lily prepared intensively. Christopher helped her put together a 3-song set list that would showcase her range: Empty Chair for emotional impact, Finding My Voice for empowerment, and a brand new song she'd just written called Building Wings, about learning to fly after you've fallen. They worked on her stage presence, how to move, how to address the audience, how to handle technical difficulties if they arose. They did mock performances where Christopher invited friends to watch, gradually building Lily's comfort level with performing for strangers. Reba, between tour dates, would FaceTime with Lily to offer encouragement and advice. Remember, these label executives, they've heard everything. What they're looking for isn't perfection. They can manufacture that in a studio. What they want is authenticity, a real person with a real story. You have that in spades. Daniel rearranged his work schedule, swapping shifts and taking on extra hours in the weeks before the showcase so he could afford to take the day off. Wayne, who'd become invested in Lily's journey, helped where he could, even passing around a hat at the garage to collect money for Lily's music fund, a gesture that had made Daniel cry in the bathroom during his lunch break. Jennifer drove up from Memphis twice to help Lily pick out an outfit for the showcase and to provide moral support. She'd always been the fashionable one in the family, and she took her role seriously, dragging Lily to thrift stores and consignment shops until they found the perfect dress. Simple but elegant, burgundy with small white flowers, paired with those brown leather boots Reba had given her. At school, Lily tried to maintain normalcy, but it was getting harder. Some kids had seen the videos online and treated her differently now. Some with admiration, some with jealousy, some with confusion about how to relate to someone who was becoming semi-famous. One afternoon, a girl named Amanda Peterson cornered Lily by the lockers. "So you think you're special now?" Amanda said, her voice dripping with contempt. Just because some washed-up country singer gave you a pity shot. Chloe stepped in before Lily could respond. Back off, Amanda. You're just jealous because Lily actually has talent. The confrontation ended with the teacher intervening, but it shook Lily. That night she called Reba, crying. Some kids at school are being mean about the music stuff. They say it's only happening because people feel sorry for me because my mom died. Reba sighed. Oh, honey, I wish I could tell you that kind of thing stops, but the truth is, there will always be people who try to diminish your success. You know why? Because it's easier to tear someone down than to build themselves up. But you can't let them get in your head. You're doing this because you're talented and you work hard, period. The rest is just noise. How do you deal with it when people say mean things about you? I remember why I started making music in the first place. Not for critics or haters or anyone else's approval. I do it because I love it, because it feeds my soul. As long as you keep that at the center, the rest doesn't matter. As April 15th approached, Lily's anxiety increased. She practiced constantly, at home, at school, during lunch, during her sessions with Christopher. Her fingers developed calluses from playing so much. She dreamed about forgetting the words on stage, about her guitar breaking mid-song, about the audience booing her off. 3 days before the showcase, she had a panic attack so severe that Daniel almost pulled her from the event. She couldn't breathe, couldn't stop crying, couldn't imagine stepping on that stage. Daniel held her while she hyperventilated, talking her through breathing exercises, reminding her that she didn't have to do this if she didn't want to. We can call Christopher right now and tell him you're out. Nobody will think less of you. I'll think less of me, Lily gasped between sobs. I told myself I was brave enough, but I'm not. I'm a coward. You are the furthest thing from a coward I have ever known. Lily, you've survived losing your mother at 9 years old. You picked yourself up and found a way forward. That takes more courage than most people show in a lifetime. But courage doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you're scared, and you do it anyway. So if you want to do this showcase, we'll figure out how to manage the fear. And if you don't, that's okay too. Lily eventually calmed down, exhausted from the emotional outburst. I want to do it, she whispered. I'm just so scared of failing. Then let's reframe what failure means, Daniel suggested. Failure isn't messing up or not getting signed or any of that external stuff. Failure is not trying. So if you get up on that stage and sing your songs, no matter what happens after, you've already succeeded. Can you accept that? Lily thought about it, then nodded slowly. I can try. The night before the showcase, Daniel couldn't sleep. He lay in bed thinking about Catherine, wishing she were there to see what their daughter had become. Around 2 in the morning, he got up and went to Lily's room. The door was ajar, and he peeked in to find her awake, sitting by the window with her guitar, playing softly. Can't sleep either, he asked quietly. Nope. Lily set down the guitar. I keep thinking about tomorrow. Daniel sat on the edge of her bed. You know what I keep thinking about? What? That night at Grimey's, when you told Reba how her music saved you. Do you remember what she did? She stopped the whole line, took me into the back office. Right, she could have just signed your CD, given you a hug, and moved on to the next person. She had 50 other people waiting. But she didn't. You know why? Lily shook her head. Because your story mattered to her. Because she recognized something real and important. And she chose to honor that, rather than stick to the schedule. Tomorrow, in that showcase, there's going to be someone in that audience who needs to hear your story the way you needed to hear Reba's. Maybe they've lost someone too. Maybe they're struggling to find their voice. Whatever it is, your music is going to reach them. That's what matters. Not the record deals or the fame or any of that. Just the connection between you and the people who need to hear what you have to say. Lily's eyes filled with tears. How did you get so wise? Your mother taught me. She always said the point of life wasn't to accumulate stuff or impress people. It was to make a difference, however small, in someone else's world. You're doing that, Lily. Through your music, through your honesty, through your courage, you're making a difference. I hope so, Lily whispered. I know so. They sat together in the pre-dawn darkness, father and daughter, both scared and hopeful, both carrying the weight of Catherine's absence and the promise of Lily's future. And slowly, as the sun began to rise over Murfreesboro, they both found a measure of peace.